very warm welcome to this presentation on Explore's Family Adventure Holidays. By way of introductions, my name's Anthony. I'm the Family Programme Manager here at Explore. And over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be talking you through our range of family adventure trips, the nuts and bolts of how they work, what you need to know before you start booking these, and also give you a bit of an insight in the range of trips which will be featured in the dedicated Adventure World brochure that should be landing over with you in the next few days. So, family adventures. I don't know if any of you have sold these before, but I think for me, the main benefit of a family adventure trip is that they're really a perfect combination of family time and trying out new adventures, new places, new experiences. And I was lucky enough to take my kids to Cuba last year for the first time, and just that sense of being, I mean, they were wide-eyed at seeing Cuban culture and so many new experiences in the few days we had over there, and they're still talking about it now. So that thrill, whether it's riding a tuk-tuk through Bangkok for the first time, or experiencing the ancient Mayan ruins in Belize, that sense of experience and adventure, and sharing that with your family is it really does help bond the family together. Certainly no more bored kids and arguments about what you're going to do. These trips are jam-packed from start to finish. So in terms of the range of family adventures that we feature, we've got 45 trips in total, and this screen graphic here shows you where they are. And you can broadly split them into two types of trips. In Europe, they tend to be centre-based holidays, rammed full of activities such as whitewater rafting, canyoning and kayaking and so on. We'll talk more about those later. And then for the rest of our program, the bulk of trips in Asia was ideal for the Australian and New Zealand market, being close to home, and then Africa and South America represented there as well. So really, hopefully there's something for everyone here. In terms of the basics, well, what do we define as a family? Well, we've kept it as simple as possible. And for us, a family, to qualify for joining one of these trips, is simply one person over 18 and one under. And that's a family in our eyes. I mean, we get families of 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, all different shapes and sizes. We get a lot of single parents who join our trips. In fact, it's ideal for single parents in many ways. It takes away some of the uncertainties of taking your kids away on your own. There's a ready-made group, and I think that group concept works particularly well for families, because as much as anything, there's an instant network of friends. And just going back to my experience on my first trip last year, the kids make friendships so quickly, and within about 48 seconds, I think they're all best buddies and charging around together. And as a parent, happy kids is basically is what you want. Happy kids is happy parents, so it works really, really well. Tend to find that families who are taking part in these types of trips have very much a shared spirit, and then wanting to get the most out of their time away. So it's all about shared experiences and having fun. So the nuts and bolts, what you need to know, the maximum group size is 20. That is slightly higher than the rest of our program. Typically 3 to 5 families. We do have slightly bigger groups. We tend with families, actually, I think the impact on that is much less. If anything, a slightly bigger group gives kids more chance of having kids of a similar age, and just sort of in many ways enhances the whole holiday experience. The average age of our children that travel with us is certainly, it's quite a bit older than Intrepid. So Intrepid, I think, is around 8 or 9 from memory. And at Explore it's 13, and in fact on many of the trips it's a bit older than that as well. So on our web page we do tell, on each trip we do give information on the average age of each particular trip. The minimum age is 7. There is a little bit of flexibility on that. If you're traveling with older siblings, we will consider 6-year-olds on a case by case basis. But yeah, we do have an advisory minimum of 7. And we also offer dedicated teenage tours as well on some more active trips with long travelling times or particularly fast-paced tours as well. Um, in terms of dates, that we've launched or are launching a range of dates to suit the Australian and New Zealand market, with departures in January, in June and September. And these will complement the departures that we have around the European school holidays, which are predominantly July and August in the Northern Hemisphere summer, but of course Christmas and Easter as well. One other point to talk about when we're talking about pricing, on all of our trips we offer at least a 10% reduction for children 11 and under. In some cases it's more than 10%. And on our website you'll see the child price identified. So I've highlighted it in yellow here on this particular example, and that will apply for 11 and under. That's 11 at the time of travel. A characteristic on all of our tours, family tours, is the accommodation that we offer. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the accommodation in a minute, but one thing to point out at this point is that we offer a combination of single, twin, and triple rooms. And that's really to, we recognise that each family is going to have different requirements here. Where we have multiples of 2 or 4 or 6, they'll be accommodated in twin rooms. Odd numbers, we will accommodate a combination of either triple rooms if the children are of primary school age, that's 11 and under. Then we will generally use triple rooms, so sharing with parents if you're a family of 3. For older teenagers, then we will accommodate kids in single rooms if they're odd numbers. And the big point to raise here is that we will not pass that cost on. So at Explore, we cover that cost, and that's very unusual, and it's certainly something to highlight to your clients. It's a big advantage for them. We always try and accommodate families in adjoining rooms where we can. Now, it's not always possible. We use quite a few homestays and tree houses and yurts and all sorts. So given the sort of characteristics of the accommodation we use, not always possible to do that, but we for staying in hotels, we certainly endeavour to do that wherever possible. There's an Explore tour leader from start to finish. That's a big aspect of all of our trips, and talk more about that in a minute. Lots of opportunities to swim. Kids at the end of a long day, want to jump into the pool and have a chance just to chill out a bit, and we very much recognise that. And so we're always, the standard of accommodation on our family trips is certainly higher than the rest of our program, and wherever possible we select properties with swimming pools as well. And the final point to mention is that just in the way that our tours are constructed, what we tend to, well, I'll come on to the next slide here, we tend to avoid lots of museums or endless cultural sites, and where we do have city tours, we try and weave in a family twist to it. So we might be exploring the underground caverns of Naples, for example, with stories of pirates and ghouls and ghosts and so on, so we build in very much a family element to it. We try and avoid long drives, and where we do have a long drive, we make sure the following day is kept free. And what we don't offer is kids clubs. So just an important point to mention here: the tour leader there isn't responsible for the childcare. That's the parents' responsibility. Um, so if you're looking for kids clubs, then probably not the best product to recommend. So just moving on to the group concept, as I mentioned, the maximum group size on our trips here, 20. Now that does vary from tour to tour. In some cases, that's less. And I think that, as I mentioned, that's very much enables kids to bond. And if you've got, I mean, we often have parents asking about the group dynamic and the group makeup, and we're always very, very happy to run through that with you. In fact, we almost encourage it, because I think to get the most out of these trips, trying to, having a close, close mix of ages. So if it's predominantly teenagers, then as some departures invariably are, it's going to be better holiday experience all round to keep that broadly the same. Likewise, on some departures, you will find that it's a younger group dynamic. So we're always happy to give out that information. In terms of our tour leaders, well, Explore work with our local partners who book all of our ground services for us. We've always employed local leaders, and that their passion, their enthusiasm for the destination really is infectious. I remember traveling in Egypt, and the tour leader, after a busy day of visiting the sites, swimming, and all the kids dive bombing, and all the parents just sitting around the pool, just relaxing at the end of the day. We select our leaders for the experience of them working with youth groups, and they really do enhance the whole experience for everyone. Moving on to accommodation. Well, our base accommodation is 3-star, but we always try and mix it up a bit. So we've got pictures here. Top left of a safari lodge in Tanzania. Top right is one of our properties in Sicily, where we stay in a tree house. Bottom right there is our hotel we use in the town of Salt in the Spanish Pyrenees, which is a spa hotel. You get 2 treatments included on this particular trip. And then bottom left is beehive huts, which you can find on our trip to South Africa and Swaziland. So we do mix up the accommodations. And I think that's all part of the experience of the trip. But where we're staying in hotels, so we always have ensuite facilities, keep the locations as convenient as possible. And on every trip, that we always incorporate at least one night, which is memorable. It could be quirky, adds to the whole experience of the trip. So in many places we'll use homestays, particularly in Asia, which just give it a whole different dynamic and experience a bit of local living. Food's always a highlight. Certainly is for me anyway. When you're travelling, got this shot here of tasty morsels that you can experience on Explore tours. And what we try and do is we try and avoid your bland tourist buffets. So we want families to experience authentic, the best of authentic cuisine in the countries that we're visiting. But we're also conscious of the fact that kids can be fussy eaters, so we always take that into account. So, but we'll try and make it as varied as possible, whilst also trying to accommodate all dietary requests that we invariably get with our groups. So it might be that we have the opportunity to try some street food for some snacks, and then we'll go to a restaurant afterwards that perhaps serves more traditional Western fare. So we try and mix it up. So that's the sort of nuts and bolts, so to speak. What I'm going to do now is just run through some of our more popular tours. And we're going to start off with our tour to Morocco. We offer 2 trips to Morocco, 2 family trips. One goes to the desert, to the town of Zagora, And then the other one a trip that goes to the coast, Estera, and the Low Atlas Mountains. But the trip featured in the Adventure World brochure is the Rock the Casbah trip, 8-day trip, starting in Marrakesh. And this gives you three big hits. It gives you the city of Marrakesh, it gives you the Atlas Mountains, and it gives you the desert. In the Atlas Mountains, we're going to go. We're going to do an amazing bike ride. So going from Marrakesh, you go up the high pass, and then we go down the other side, and we're going to jump onto the bikes, and we're going to ride all the way down to Ben Haddou. Um, Marrakesh itself is, fantastic for kids, exploring all the old Medina and all the markets. And the other big highlight of this particular trip is camping out in the desert. And we have a desert camp in the desert in Zagora, or just outside Zagora. Big roaring fire, and get to sleep in a traditional Berber tent, and have a fantastic dinner down, sleeping under the stars. So that's a real highlight. Great value as well. Morocco is generally really good value. And it's possible to combine this trip with other tours that we have in the country, or to spend some time under your own steam as well. So moving down to South Africa, and one thing I will stress at this point is I'm just going to only show you a selection of tours which are featured in the brochure. We also feature tours to Tanzania, to Botswana, and yeah, so it's worth having a look at our website for the full range of trips that we feature. But this is our most popular trip to South Africa, our Kruger, KwaZulu and Coast Tour, 12 days, starting in Johannesburg. And really trying, the big focus on this trip, the big is the game reserves in the Kruger. And we actually combine three different parks to give you maximum, they're all slightly different in terms of what you're going to see. And to give you the maximum opportunity for seeing the big five. We've also got some really unique accommodation. I showed you a picture earlier of the beehive huts that we stay in Swaziland. We've also got a fantastic property in Cozy Bay where you can go out and take kayaks out onto the bay itself. And there's some wonderful beaches on the Atlantic. So this is a great tour, not only for the wildlife, of course, which is one of the highlights, but actually it's a far more extensive tour as well, and very popular. Moving on to our Asia products, and one of our most popular trips in Asia is Sri Lanka and the Maldives tour. A formula for us that we've found over the years that works really well is combining a touring trip. In this case, it's 11 days in Sri Lanka, a very busy 11 days, with an element of rest and relaxation at the end. So on many trips, you'll find that we have 2 or 3 days on the beach. On this trip, we've got 4 nights, so 5 days on a traditional dhow boat in the Maldives, cruising around the Maldives, and then that works really well. Just have that downtime at the end. On this trip, packed full of family-friendly activities. So we're staying in a mud hut. On the second night, it's actually not a mud hut; it's more of a banda, where you can go out and take bikes and go and explore the local countryside. They've got kayaks. They've got a whole network of water channels that you can go and explore. Cookery lessons there as well, or you can just sit and relax in the hammocks and just watch the world go by. In Polonnaruwa, the ancient capital, there's a big temple complex there. And rather than doing a rather dry tour on foot, what we do is we actually go out on bikes, and that way, if kids get a little bit bored, they can just go off and they can cycle around the site, and the adults can sort of carry on and learn about the history and the heritage of the place. That just gives you an example of the way we do things slightly different on our family trips. Um, yeah, so we've got cooking lessons, we've got visit the tea plantations, we stay in an elephant transit home where we stay in tented camps. And we have a big fire in the evening and roast marshmallows and fantastic hospitality down there. And then spending some time on the coast before we fly over to the Maldives. We also offer a 9-day version of this trip without the Maldives, where we go whitewater rafting and have a surfing lesson as well. So that's an alternative to this trip. Northern India, incredibly popular. We offer a 9-day trip. The highlights are the Golden Triangle, so Ranthambore, to hopefully get the opportunity to see tigers there. And then we have a rural heritage fort, 2 days in rural Rajasthan and Jaipur as well as spending time in Delhi at the start of the trip. Great value, $1,300 per person, and this is our most popular trip in India for families. We also offer a longer tour, 14-day tour that combines the north and south, spending time in Kerala and on the houseboats down there. Moving on to Borneo, and we offer 2 variants of this trip, 11 days. For teenagers, our tour includes the hike up to the top of Mount Kinabalu. And then for open age from 7 onwards, we're a slight variant where we don't do the trek, but we spend a bit more time in Sepalok. Moving on to Vietnam, 2 versions of this trip: an 11-day, and then there's a longer 15-day trip which spends a bit more time in the north. And you can combine this trip with 5 days in Cambodia, spending time in Phnom Penh and Angkor Wat as well. We also offer a beach extension in Phuket as well. So yeah, lots of ways to combine this trip to make it a longer tour. But this is very much tried and tested, hugely popular, and I'm sure for the Australian and New Zealand market, one of the biggest up and coming destinations. Travelling from north to south. So we've got an overnight train journey from Hanoi down to Hue, time in Hoi An. We've got a night on travelling around Halong Bay, and lots of family-friendly activities as well. So martial arts class in amongst the old royal palaces of Hue. Get to make a kite and fly that. We go to a secret weapons bunker in Ho Chi Minh City and learn a bit more about the conflict, the Vietnam War, and also we've got a night in a homestay as well at the end of the trip in the Mekong Delta. Moving over to Central America, our Costa Rica trip, 14-day tour. Costa Rica, another very, very popular destination, certainly for the UK market, and I gather increasingly popular for the Australian and New Zealand market as well. So for those looking for really a great combination of wildlife, natural beauty, fantastic beaches. It's one of the few countries where you can combine the Pacific Ocean and Caribbean Ocean as well in the same tour. Relatively short travelling times on this trip, and very easy to get around. It's quite a developed country nowadays, Costa Rica. So for those looking for the adrenaline junkies, we've got whitewater rafting, the option to go zip wiring as well. You've got time in Tortuguero, where at certain times of year you can see the turtles coming ashore. And you've also got time at the end of the tour in Manuel Antonio. Stunning beaches on the Indian Ocean to finish with. So a real all-round family classic. This Cuba. I mentioned Cuba. Beginning of the presentation, I was lucky enough to go here last year. I would do go if you haven't been. It really is it's a fantastic country. Yeah, go before it changes too much. Um, so starting off in Havana, we start off by heading west to Vinales. We've got a full day over in Cayo La Visa, which is just a beautiful white sand, almost Robinson Crusoe Island there. You know, virtually deserted, absolutely stunning. Before we heading back over to Cienfuegos, and we spend time in one of the national parks, Topaz, where we camp out in the jungle, in a sort of the grounds of a hacienda. Lots of swimming in waterfalls and jumping in rock pools. And yeah, great fun, really varied. I love Trinidad, really vibrant. The music there, the soul of that. It's got real, yeah, Cuba's just got so full of life. Um, Great restaurants, really super friendly people. Um, yeah, great destination. And by concentrating on and actually other tours tend to go further east. The problem with that is you're not really seeing that much new, um, and the travelling times are quite long. So the advantage of this trip is we've cut the travelling times down. That gives us, by spending 2 days at each place, it doesn't feel like you're constantly on the move. So Jordan Discovery. Jordan's again a very popular destination, certainly for the UK market. It's a classic 9 day trip. Flying into Oman. I'm heading south, so it's lots of highlights here. Crusader castles, the Wadi Rum, which is in the south of the country. You can see the photo here of it's almost it almost looks like Mars. I think actually the movie The Martian was filmed here, and it does sort of feel slightly outer worldly. Amazing landscapes. Swimming in the Dead Sea, or rather floating, I should say, in the Dead Sea. So lots of history to this wonderful country. Very compact, so easy to get around. Not that much driving on this, and fascinating culture as well. So 9 day Jordan Discovery. And then I did mention our multi-activity trips. So in Europe, where we have a number of tours. We've got 14 tours in Europe. This follows a slightly different model. So what we do here is that they're all centre based. So we've taken a lot of time and effort to choose a real characterful accommodation. Normally staying where we can with local families. So you really get to get to know and get to um, get real insight into the villages and towns where we're staying. Multi-active, so lots of variety. Mountain biking, maybe some hiking in there. Via Ferrata, which is climbing. If it's going on the coast, there's the sea kayaking or stand-up paddle boarding. Rafting as well. So lots and lots of variety. What we tend to do is we have an activity at least every other day. In some cases, it's going to be more activities included, but as a minimum, there's an activity every other day. One of the benefits of that is it does give you flexibility. So trying out lots of new activities, but at the same time just also to chill out. We always use properties which have got a pool, so it's a great combination of being active on the one hand, but actually time for the family together as well. So a couple of trips. I mean, our most popular trip is Tuscany, the village the valley of Garfagnana, which is just north of Pisa. So flying into Pisa, and staying in an agriturismo. A picture on the bottom left there, bottom right rather, of Rupert and his family. And he's, we run this trip with him for 16 years now. It's a firm favourite. You know, he's welcoming you into his home, and all the meals are home prepared and home cooked. And each day you're going off and doing different activities. And it's a format that works incredibly well. And I will just finish with one more. This is a trip in Turkey, in Kos, which is a really delightful Mediterranean town. Uh, but similar format though. You're going off each day. You've got a day on a traditional Turkish gullet. You're going off and going on in sea kayaks over the sunken ruins, and visiting Crusader castles as well. So lots and lots of variety, and that's really what these trips are all about. Is quality time together, perfect combination of adventure and quality family time. So I hope that's been helpful. As always, if you've got any questions, then please do give us a call. We're always here to help, and best of luck selling this new range of family adventure tours.